What do Old West ghost towns and the Cold War have in common? Well, the simple answer is not much, except for a couple of main things. Both Old West ghost towns and the Cold War era have left remnants of the past that we can still see today. And this adventure is going to allow us to explore both. My name is AJ, and this is Buckin' Life Off-Road. Welcome back, fellow adventure seekers. I'm AJ, and this is Buckin' Life Off-Road. Today's video might be a little bit different than what you're used to. I'm not going to be out in the middle of the wilderness per se. I'll be out in a little bit of the desert, but this episode is more about abandoned places of the past. The Silverbell Sasco Loop begins just off of I-10 near Marana, Arizona, and the exit for Red Rock Road. This is a 54-mile route consisting mostly of dirt, but some pavement. This is an easy route with only a water crossing obstacle, but it might give low clearance vehicles some trouble. Now this is going to be an extremely easy run today. I read in the description that a lifted Prius could do it. Of course, that might be somewhat hyperbole, but you know, it is marked as a 3 on Onyx, which is extremely easy, so it's basically just a rough dirt road. There is a water crossing that I know we have to cross. How deep is it? I don't know. I've read that it can be up to 3 feet deep or as shallow as 18 inches. So obviously that water crossing was not deep at all, not even a challenge. So I'm going up to an offshoot right now. I marked one of these areas on Onyx just to check out what it might be because it looks pretty interesting. So let's get there and see what it is. So our first stop of the day up on this offshoot is Sasco Cemetery. From what I read, most of these people buried here died from the Spanish flu. I'm not sure how many graves there are, but it looks to be about 60. It is fenced off. I cannot go in there. It is private property. But I will find out some more information about it and let you know what's up with it. Sasco Cemetery is just the first piece of the Old West Ghost Town Sasco that we will be exploring today. The cemetery itself is located about a mile north of the main town site. Sasco Cemetery is mainly populated by the victims of the 1917 to 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. This epidemic claimed the lives of over 675,000 Americans and infected 500 million worldwide. That was about 1/3 the Earth's population at the time. The cemetery is said to have 131 recorded burials, but I did not see that many markers there. The cemetery is fenced off and locked as it is private property. Although most of the graves in the Sasco Cemetery are over 100 years old, the newest one is in the northwest corner and it is dated 1991. Well, that was the Sasco Cemetery. You know, it's pretty sad to think about all those people dying from the Spanish flu. Of course, they didn't have the medicines back then that we do today, so obviously that had something to do with it. But it's just too bad that all those people had to lose their lives for a simple virus. Our next stop, which is just down the way here, is this abandoned structure you see behind me. This is part of the Sasco Ghost Town, and obviously there isn't much left, but it definitely is an interesting stop. After a little bit of research, I discovered that this old structure was actually an old hotel entitled the Hotel Rockland. The picture you see here was taken circa 1921. It had a handful of small rooms, and I'm sure in its heyday it was probably pretty busy due to the mining of the area at the time. That was a cool little stop. Isn't much left of the building, but I always love exploring abandoned buildings like that, as you know. So now we're going to head to our next little destination, which is again just up the way here. It's some sort of structure. I have no idea what it is, but it looks very interesting to me, so we're going to go check it out. Okay, now this area, there are structures littered everywhere. Now on Onyx it says Silverbell smelter, so obviously this had to do with mining operations. But there are a lot of interesting structures here to check out. This one here is very interesting. I have no idea what this could have been used for. And I'm not going to try to climb up into it because I might not be able to get back out, but pretty interesting if you ask me. Some interesting graffiti on it, of course. And it's obvious that people do a lot of shooting in this spot. There are shells everywhere and trash everywhere. And there's still a smoldering log right there. Looks like somebody was here recently. Now, even though this is on a concrete platform, you should still put stuff like that out. You never know when it's going to get windy and move ambers into the bushes and start a fire. I'm going to try to stamp it out if I can, but I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Let's go check out some of these other structures. This one looks really interesting down the way here. Looks like we might be able to walk through it. This one's pretty big. Yeah. Very interesting. Now this building was part of the Sasco smelter complex, but I have no idea what function this building was used for. It definitely was not a small building though. Here I found a couple of old photographs showing the Sasco smelter complex. As you can see, it was not small. Now Sasco, which is an acronym for Southern Arizona Smelting Company, was built in 1907. But Sasco wasn't a mining town. It was a smelting and milling town, meaning the ore was brought from the Silverbell mine over to Sasco for processing. At its peak, Sasco was home to about 600 people. Now the Sasco smelter operated from 1907 to 1911, but then was shut down and then reopened again in 1915. Then of course in 1918 came the Spanish flu epidemic and the rest was history. Very interesting.
Now, as I've said before, my knowledge of old mining processes aren't the best, but I believe this structure right here was some sort of holding tank for either molten ore or maybe even possibly water. If any of you guys out there can tell me, please educate me on this one.
So I drove to the top of the hill here. Right past the Bronco is that circular object with the hole in the middle. Obviously you saw on the drone, I flew it up to the hole and it was just ground underneath, so I really don't know what that was for. But this area seems very interesting to me as well. If anybody knows what these were for, please enlighten me, because I'm clueless. Theirs looks like an opening to a shaft down the end here, so we're gonna go check that out and see if maybe we might be able to get a peek. I highly doubt it, but it's worth a shot anyway. Yeah, it looks like this used to be a shaft, but is now blocked off or caved in. It was worth a look anyway. But yeah, these lined up concrete structures are just, I'm at a loss. It is a pretty interesting spot so far though. Okay, so now we're gonna head out from this off spur, continue along the Silverbell Sasco loop, and see what else we can find along the way. Now this whole area I'm in now is part of the Ironwood National Monument. That very interesting looking peak off in the distance is called Ragged Top. Behind it is Walcott Peak, which you cannot see from this angle. But there's a very interesting looking set of mountains right there. One thing I want to point out about this area, I'm seeing a lot of strange looking saguaro cacti. Typically, you know, on saguaro, the arms point upward towards the sky. Well, I'm seeing a lot of them that are pointed down towards the ground. I don't know if that's a mutation, something wrong with them, but there's a lot of them in this area. You can see like that one right there. That one only has a couple arms that are pointed down towards the ground, but to me it looks weird. So I don't know if it's just on its way out dying, or if it's just that old and the weight just points them down to the ground after so long. I don't know, but it's very interesting. This whole area is very thick with saguaro, and a lot of interesting looking ones. There are some saguaro that are about 20-30 feet tall that have no arms on them at all, just a straight shot up. And usually when you get a saguaro that's that tall, they have arms because they're old. Saguaro don't generally grow arms until they're about 75 years old and beyond. So it is pretty interesting to see these type of saguaro out here that I've never seen before. And I've been out here since 2019. You know, this is kind of out there, but I wanted to mention it anyways because it popped into my head. You see the tops of those peaks that were mined. Obviously, you know that was a mined area. Okay, you can see that. Now, you kind of see the same thing in certain areas of the Grand Canyon. Obviously, much older, but they look very, very similar. Do you think ancient civilizations mined that area before we came here? I don't know. I know it's out there. I just thought it was something interesting to think about. Sometimes I go off into little fantasy worlds, you know, but, you know, that's just me. And I know what I was just talking about is probably a little bit silly to most, if not all of you. But it has a striking resemblance. It could be coincidence, but I don't know. Man, I almost forgot to mention to you guys, Happy New Year. This is, in fact, New Year's Day, the start of 2025. And I had the day off, so that's why I came out here today. But yeah, 2024 was a great year. For me, it was pretty good. For some, I'm sure it wasn't all that great. If it wasn't a great year for you in 2024, let's make 2025 one of your best years yet. It's wonderful about starting a new year. Everyone gets a fresh start on the new year, and you can make it what you want it to be. This is a very interesting area. You can see what I'm looking at, right? This almost looks like melted rock, and I don't know what it is. Boy, you know, I almost feel stupid because there's so many things out here that I don't know what they are and how they came to be. Look how smooth these rocks are. I don't know. I'm just an idiot. Somebody educate me, please. But either way, it's pretty cool. Now here's a broken piece of this rock. What is this? It's black and it almost looks like glass. But I mean, it's all over the place here. There are some pretty nice views of the Ironwood forest out this way. You can see pretty far out. It is kind of smoky off in the distance. I don't know if there's a fire somewhere nearby or not, but it was smoky most of the way in this morning. So again, with the mining and how it's stepped, even off in the distance there, you can see. Tell me you haven't seen pictures of areas of the Grand Canyon that look exactly like that, just way older. So just across the way here, you can see all these tailings of whatever ore this is. Here's a nice flat piece of it. God, I wish I was smarter when it came to geology. Either way, I'll find out. And it's interesting. I love learning new things. You know, I'm thinking maybe that it might be obsidian. Don't quote me on that. But that's the only thing I can think of.
So this here is obsidian. After doing a quick search, I figured out that it's actually a material called slag. It wasn't obsidian at all. So what is slag? Well, slag is a waste material left over after smelting or refining metals, or heating rocks that contain metal to extract the metal. Slag is typically gray, brown, or black, and can have a rough or sharp surface. It may also have a glassy appearance, and often has bubbles or bubble marks. Well, now that I've gone and educated myself, I don't feel like such a dumbass anymore. Now, we can continue on with the journey.
So at this point, it looks like we're just about halfway around the loop. We're almost at the Titan missile silos that I've been wanting to check out. It looks like one of our last stops, but we're pretty close. We're getting there, and we'll see you when we get there. The Ironwood National Monument is made up of 129,000 acres and contains a significant system of cultural and historical sites covering a 5,000-year period. Possessing one of the richest stands of ironwood in the Sonoran Desert, the monument also encompasses several desert mountain ranges, including the Silverbell, the Waterman, and Sawtooth, with desert valleys in between. Elevation ranges from 1,800 to 4,261 feet. The monument is a travel corridor for undocumented immigrants traveling from Mexico. All suspected illegal activities should be reported to BLM or local law enforcement authorities. Stay safe by avoiding contact with persons exhibiting suspicious behavior or engaged in dangerous activities. Drive with caution and look for fast-moving vehicles and pedestrians on back roads. Some of the roads are rugged, so high clearance or four-wheel drive vehicles are recommended in those areas. Ironwood Forest National Monument is located in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona. Created by Bill Clinton by presidential proclamation on June 9, 2000. The monument is managed by the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM. The desert ironwood is a very long-lived tree, with some specimens estimated to be more than 800 years old. Desert ironwood is a keystone species because it provides a nursery environment of shade and protection that enables young seedlings of other species to become established despite the harsh desert climate. The Hohokam people were the first miners in the area. They mined turquoise in the Silverbell Mountains. Silver and copper mining began in the Silverbell Mountains around 1850 and continues to this day. Now I just hit a small stint of pavement that we had to get on in order to get to the Titan missile interpretive site, and now we're back on dirt again. And you'll do that a couple of times throughout this loop. You're gonna hit pavement, get back on dirt, hit pavement, get back on dirt. So now I did air down my tires at the beginning just to like 20 psi, just for more comfort. I recommend doing the same, even though it's an easy route. It's still a little bit rocky in areas and rough, so it makes the ride that much better. All right, so we're here at the interpretive site. Here's some maps to show you around where to go. Obviously, we got to do a little bit of walking in to see where the silos are and whatnot. Gives you a pretty good idea. See, we're here at the parking area. Silo looks like it's dead ahead of the Titan missile. Now, that's a pretty scary thing to think of. You know, back in the Cold War days, I remember being in school and having fallout shelter signs in the hallways and stuff. You know, the whole country was all scared at the time of a nuclear war, with good reason. You know, so it's I'm glad it's over. And you know, if you didn't know, the Cold War started in 1947, I believe, and it ended in 1991 with the fall of the Soviet Union. You know, and here's an interesting fact. It says here that the Titan missile site 570-3 was a self-contained unit located largely underground. It was staffed 24 hours a day for more than 20 years by 4 U.S. Air Force personnel working in shifts. The facility was designed to withstand attack and remain ready to launch at any moment. I mean, that's scary. Don't you think? And you know, obviously, thank God, no missiles were ever launched from this site. I think they need to redo some of these descriptions. They're in pretty bad shape. But you can see here it, you know, describes what they looked like, and, you know, gives you a little bit of information about them. It's too bad we can't get underneath there and have a look around. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? And you can see here's the map. Here's Tucson. We're right over here by the Silverbell mine. Okay, there's Ragged Top, as I mentioned before. This was the loop that we came in on. I came in on the northernmost side right here, and now we're right here. So we just got that little bit ways to go, and we'll get back out on I-10 and head back home after we're done. Let's go take a little walk. I remember doing drills in school as a kid in elementary school. If there ever was an attack, you know, we had to form lines and practice going down to the fallout shelter, you know, even getting underneath our desks and whatnot. Back then, you know, as a kid, you don't really think much of that, you know, but looking back, it's pretty scary that we had to do that. Yeah, you know, the silo was right in here. Obviously, it's been covered and whatnot. Maybe even dismantled, but you see little markers. There were radio antennas here, obviously on this concrete pad. We'll take a quick look around here and see what we can find. It says the silo was right in there, right directly across from me, but I really don't see any evidence of it. Here's something, looks like it was mounted to this concrete. Might have been another antenna or something. Just think, right now I'm walking on an area that used to contain a missile, a nuclear missile. Yeah, I don't see anything. I mean, obviously the top of the silo was dismantled and everything was covered up. This concrete pad right here was called a hard stand for loading missile propellant. It says the two large concrete hard stands visible in front of you were staging areas used to load and unload missile propellant. Propellant arrived in tank trucks and was transferred to the holding trailer. It was then cooled to 60 degrees Fahrenheit before being loaded onto the missile through underground pipes. Propellant was highly toxic and was handled by teams wearing protective suits that looked similar to those worn by astronauts. Once loaded propellant could be kept in the missile indefinitely. Loading operations were infrequent, occurring perhaps only every few years for any given missile in response to maintenance requirements. Boy, you know, if I don't see anything more than that, what we've seen, I'll be kind of disappointed. I definitely thought there'd be a lot more to see than this. Okay, so you can see the hard stand where we're at. And so there's the silo, there's the missile. And so it had to be right there, right directly in front of us. Obviously it's the area that's kind of up and away, you know, so basically right here, we're standing on top of the missile silo. Right here. Let's see what this says over here. Yep. Missile silo. Don't you wish you could just dig down in there and get inside the silo? You know, I'm wondering if it was completely dismantled and completely filled. It probably was. You know, obviously the missile's still not sitting underground right there. No, I wouldn't think so anyway. There's also a Titan Missile Museum not far from here. I'm pretty sure they're closed today, seeing as though it's New Year's Day, but you can take a tour and see how operations were, see the control center and everything. It's pretty neat. Neat now, but not neat back then, considering we were definitely on the brink of nuclear war. You know, if that happened, you know, life wouldn't be the same as we know it today. So I did have a look on Onyx to see if I could spot really anything else, and I didn't see anything. So we're going to continue on the rest of the path and see if we see anything interesting along the way. Might have to keep an eye out, but you know, I really thought that we were going to see more at the interpretive site than what we saw. But, you know, at the same time, to know that I was standing on top of an old missile silo was pretty neat. At least I think so anyway. Now, I marked all these locations on Onyx. As you guys know, I've used Onyx since the beginning. If you want to give Onyx Off-Road a try, there's a link down in the description. I don't think you'll be disappointed with it, and if you're on the fence about it, just go ahead and do it. Just make sure you use that link down in the description and start to plan some more adventures. I plan all my adventures with Onyx. We're not done with the whole entire loop. It is pavement from here on out, I'm pretty sure, so I'm airing up my tires. The Titan Missile Museum is about 42 miles from here, south of Tucson, so it's down by Green Valley, so we're not going to go there. I thought it was a little bit closer to this site, but it is not. You know, it was a fun, interesting day today. Easy little trail to be on. Saw some interesting things, some structures, part of the old ghost town. And so it wasn't a complete loss, even though I expected more from the interpretive site. That is quite all right. You know, that's what adventuring is all about. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video here. But I want to thank you guys all for joining me on Bucking Life. I'll see you on the next one.